There's an Australian island where the entire human population would fit comfortably on 2 Greyhound buses, and the local animals outnumber them roughly 55,000 to 1. Every November, 100 million of them march out of the rainforest, flood the roads, climb over cars, and shut down major bridges. The residents close their doors, board up their garages, and let the invasion roll through. And that's just number 12 on this list. Today, I'm taking you to 12 real Australian towns and islands where the wildlife isn't a postcard. It's the majority population. We've got an island with 4 million penguins and 0 permanent residents. A snake island the size of a footy ground with 400 tiger snakes. A cattle station bigger than Israel run by 8 blokes and a chopper. And a holiday town where emus drink from people's bird baths. Hit subscribe before we start. I'll be back at the bottom of this video with the wildest one of the lot. Number 1 will genuinely change how you picture this country. Number 12. Hyden, Western Australian. We start in the Western Australian Wheatbelt, about a 4-hour drive east of Perth, on the edge of where the farms run out and the desert begins. Welcome to Hyden. Population, 384 people. If you've never heard of Hyden, you've definitely heard of what sits 4 kilometers east of it, Wave Rock. The giant granite in Selberg that looks like a 15-meter tall ocean wave frozen in stone. The setup here is classic Wheatbelt, sheep and wheat country, open paddocks, big skies, tin roofs baking in the sun. The town itself has a pub, a caravan park, a fuel stop, and not much else. The surrounding shire of Condonine runs hundreds of thousands of sheep on properties measured in thousands of hectares apiece. The sheep-to-human ratio out here comfortably clears 1,000 to 1, probably closer to 2,000. But here's where Hyden gets interesting. The town gets 100,000 tourists a year. That's almost 300 visitors per resident every single year, mostly coming for 15 minutes of photos at Wave Rock before driving back to Perth. Add in the emus that wander into town from the surrounding bush, the kangaroos at dusk, and the cockatoos that descend on every wheat silo. And you've got a town where the humans are visibly outnumbered in every direction you look. The conflict here is the slow grind of agricultural decline. Wheatbelt towns across WA are shrinking. Mechanization killed the farm jobs decades ago. But Hyden has hung on, mostly because of one rock. A 2.7 billion-year-old rock formed long before there were humans on the planet at all. Drive into Hyden on a hot January afternoon and you'll see what most of inland Australia actually looks like. Quiet streets, fat sheep, and a couple of tourists trying to find a coffee. Number 11. Coffin Bay, South Australia. Cross the Bight to South Australia's Eyre Peninsula. Population of Coffin Bay, around 600 permanent residents, swelling in summer when the grey nomads roll in. Famous around the world for one thing, Coffin Bay oysters, harvested from the cold, clean waters of the bay since the 1960s. Top restaurants in Tokyo and Singapore pay top dollar for them. But oysters aren't what makes this town outrageous. The emus are. Big, dusty, 3-pronged footed emus, sometimes in family groups of 8 or 10, wander the streets of Coffin Bay like they own the joint, because frankly, they kind of do. They drink out of bird baths. They block driveways. They raise their stripy chicks in front yards, with the dad emu dads do all the parenting, standing guard against tourists who get too close with a phone. How did it get this bad? Decades of well-meaning locals and tourists feeding them. Emus are smart. Generations of birds have learned that humans equal food, and the wild caution has been bred out of them. Council debates have run for years. Some residents love the birds. Others, particularly anyone who's been charged by a 50-kilo emu in mating season, want them cold or relocated. Here's the dark side. Emus can be dangerous. They've got a kick like a horse and a temper to match. There have been multiple reports of birds attacking children, knocking over elderly residents, and damaging cars. Coffin Bay sits on a knife's edge between the cute viral video of an emu sipping from a bird bath and a genuine wildlife management problem. If you visit, don't feed them. That's the whole story in one sentence. Walk past, take your photo from a safe distance, and let the locals deal with the bird that thinks it's the mayor. Number 10. Lord Howe Island, New South Wales. 600 kilometres off the New South Wales coast, halfway to New Zealand, sits one of the strangest little democracies in Australia. Lord Howe Island, a jagged volcanic remnant rising out of the Tasman Sea, with two giant mountains at its southern end, dense Kentia palm forests, and water so clear you can see 30 metres down. UNESCO World Heritage listed, and the permanent human population is legally capped at 400. That's right, capped by law. You cannot just move to Lord Howe Island. The number of visitors at any one time is also capped at 400, making it one of only 2 destinations on Earth. The other is the Galapagos, where tourism numbers are restricted by legislation. The island runs on solar power, no mobile reception in most spots, no chain stores, and one tiny airport that takes a 22-seater plane from Sydney. What it does have, in absolutely staggering numbers, is birds, Providence petrels, flesh-footed shearwaters, masked boobies, sooty terns, hundreds of thousands of nesting seabirds. And the star of the show is the Lord Howe woodhen, a chunky, flightless bird that was down to just 250 individuals by the 1980s and almost extinct. After a major rodent eradication program in 2019, the population has rebounded past 1,500 birds. Walk through the forest and they wander up to your boots, completely unafraid. Most of the 400 residents are direct descendants of the original 19th century whaling and palm seed trading families. They run the lodges, the boats, the bakery, the post office. It's the closest thing Australia has to a real-life utopia, but only if you can get on the waiting list. The wildlife outnumbers the humans by hundreds of thousands to 1. And on Lord Howe, that's exactly how the locals want it. Number 9. Eyre Island, Tasmania. 80 kilometres up the east coast of Tasmania, Eyre Island sits like a quiet green secret in the sea. Permanent human residents, 0. Just a small ranger crew and a rotating handful of campers and bunkhouse guests. The island is now a national park, but the wildlife population is what makes it world famous. Eyre Island is what Tasmania looked like before humans turned up. The setup is almost dreamlike. Around 600 bare-nosed wombats wander through grasslands at dusk, grazing like sheep. Forester kangaroos, the largest marsupial in Tasmania, lounge in mobs of 40 or 50. There's an insurance population of Tasmanian devils introduced in 2012 to protect them from the facial tumour disease wiping out the mainland devils. Cape Barren geese, once nearly extinct, honk through the long grass. Pademelons hop across the convict ruins at twilight. The human story here is layered. Eyre Island was a convict probation station from 1825 to 1850, and the chapel, mill, and penitentiary at Darlington are still standing. After that, it became an Italian-run cement and silk factory in the early 1900s, then a farm, then a national park in 1972. Every human use eventually failed, and the wildlife moved back in. Quick favor. If you're enjoying this so far, smash that subscribe button. It tells YouTube to push proper Aussie deep dives like this one out to more people. We're halfway. The next 6 get genuinely wild, including a tiny island that's basically a venomous snake aquarium and a cattle station bigger than entire European countries. Right, onwards. Number 8. Carnac Island, Western Australia. Just 10 kilometres off the coast of Fremantle in Western Australia, you can see a low, green island from any decent vantage point in Perth. It looks postcard pretty. White sand, turquoise water, sea lions sunbaking on the beach. It's also one of the most snake-infested places on Earth. Carnac Island. The island is tiny, about 16 hectares, smaller than a decent suburban block of farms. And on those 16 hectares live an estimated 400 tiger snakes. That works out to roughly 20 adult tiger snakes per hectare, one of the densest venomous snake populations on the planet. For context, tiger snakes are among the top 10 most venomous snakes in the world. Their bite, untreated, kills humans within hours. Here's the strange part. Tiger snakes shouldn't be there at all. Carnac is a seabird island, originally home to silver gulls and little penguins. The going theory is that in the late 1920s or early 1930s, a snake showman named Rocky Vane, who put on traveling reptile performances, released somewhere between 40 and 100 tiger snakes on the island, possibly after a bad show or to dispose of unwanted stock. The snakes found a buffet, gull chicks and eggs, and they bred unchecked for the next century. The human population of Carnac is exactly zero. No buildings, no campsites. Day visitors can land on the western beach for a swim and a picnic, but a strict ranger warning sits on the dock. Walk in single file, do not enter the interior, and watch every step. The Australian sea lions that bask on the beach are utterly unbothered by the snakes. They're not on the snake menu. You are. It's one of the very few places in this country where you genuinely should not get off the boat. Number 7. Anna Creek Station, South Australia. Now to a town that isn't really a town, it's a cattle station, Anna Creek. Sitting in the desert country of northern South Australia, west of Lake Eyre, Anna Creek is officially the world's largest working cattle station, covering an absolutely ridiculous 23,677 square kilometers. To put that in perspective, Anna Creek is larger than the entire country of Israel, larger than Belgium, larger than Slovenia. The permanent human population of Anna Creek is around 8 to 10 people. A station manager, a head stockman, a cook, a couple of ringers, a mechanic, and sometimes a governess for the kids. The animal population on the same land sits at around 17,000 head of cattle in a good year, plus untold thousands of kangaroos, dingoes, emus, and feral camels. Do the maths, and the cattle to human ratio is roughly 2,000 to 1, and that's before you count the wildlife. Here's how that even works. The station is mustered by helicopter. You can't ride a horse across an area the size of a country in any reasonable time. Choppers, motorbikes, quad bikes, and dogs do the work that 50 stockmen used to do on horseback. The annual cattle muster takes weeks. Resupply happens via the Garn railway line, which runs straight through the property. Anna Creek even has its own railway siding. The conflict here is climate. Anna Creek gets just 140 millimeters of rain a year. In drought, the place becomes a brutal calculation of feed versus stock numbers. In a good year, it turns green and absolutely thrives. The station is now owned by Williams Cattle Company after a long stretch under the legendary S. Kidman and Co. Empire, the same Kidman family who once owned more land than any private family on Earth. Anna Creek isn't a town, it's a country with cows. Number 6. Kangaroo Island, South Australia. A 45-minute ferry ride from the South Australian mainland brings you to one of the most aptly named places on the planet, Kangaroo Island, officially Kata Pintinga in the local Ngarrindjeri language, meaning Island of the Dead. Human population, around 4,900 people spread across 4,400 square kilometers. That works out to just 1.07 people per square kilometer, emptier than Mongolia. The wildlife situation here is bonkers. Before the 2019 to 2020 Black Summer bushfires, the island held an estimated 65,000 kangaroos, plus 50,000 koalas and tens of thousands of echidnas, wallabies, and possums. The kangaroo to human ratio sat comfortably above 13 to 1, and that's just the macropods. Add in everything else, and you get to that 1,000 to 1 territory pretty quickly. Then came the fires. Almost half the island burned. An estimated 41,000 koalas died, along with tens of thousands of kangaroos. Entire stretches of bushland turned to ash. International donations poured in. Local farmers walked their burned paddocks, pulling injured animals out of fences. It was the worst wildlife disaster in modern Australian history. Here's the resolution, and it's actually hopeful. 6 years on, Kangaroo Island is bouncing back. The bush has regenerated faster than ecologists predicted. Koala populations are climbing. The Ligurian honeybee sanctuary, the only pure population of Ligurian honeybees left on Earth, survived intact. Tourism numbers are rebuilding. The remaining 4,900 residents are some of the most fiercely self-sufficient people in Australia. They're the kind of locals who pull strangers' cars out of bogs at midnight and never ask for a thank you. Kangaroo Island is proof that an animal majority town can come back, even after catastrophe. Number 5. Rottnest Island, Western Australia. 19 kilometres off the coast of Perth sits the small, sandy island that broke the internet, Rottnest, or in the proper Whadjuk Noongar name, Wudjumup. Permanent human population, under 300 staff and seasonal workers. No private residences allowed. The island is essentially a national park, a former Aboriginal prison site with a heavy and largely untold history, and a holiday playground for Perth. The animal that made this place world famous is, of course, the quokka, a small marsupial about the size of a domestic cat, with a face that looks like it's permanently smiling. Rottnest holds the largest wild population of quokkas on Earth, somewhere between 8,000 and 12,000 individuals. Mainland quokkas, by contrast, have vanished from over half their historic range. In 2013, a Perth tourist took a selfie with one and posted it to Instagram. The quokka selfie trend exploded. Roger Federer, Margot Robbie, Chris Hemsworth, every celebrity who visited took one. The island's tourism numbers tripled. Today, it's one of the most photographed marsupials on the planet. But there's a darker thread here. The Dutch explorer who named Rottnest in 1696, Willem de Vlaming, mistook the quokkas for giant rats. Rottnest literally means rat's nest, and the island was used by the colonial government from 1838 to 1931 as an Aboriginal prison, holding nearly 4,000 Aboriginal men and boys from across Western Australia, of whom at least 373 are buried in unmarked graves on the island. The Whadjuk Noongar people consider Wudjumup deeply sacred and partly haunted. The quokkas are wonderful. The history beneath them is something every visitor should also know. Number 4. Phillip Island, Victoria. 90 minutes south of Melbourne, across the San Remo Bridge, is the island that proved a wildlife colony can be bigger than the town that surrounds it. Phillip Island, permanent human population, around 12,000, swelling to triple that in summer. Visitor numbers per year, roughly 700,000, and almost all of them come for one thing: the Penguin Parade. Every single evening, just before sunset, the world's smallest penguin, the little penguin, fully grown at about 33 centimeters tall, comes ashore at Summerland Beach in tight, waddling groups. They've been at sea all day fishing. They come home to feed their chicks in burrows up the dunes. The whole crossing takes about an hour. It happens 365 nights a year. Here's the staggering part. The colony has gone from around 12,000 birds in the mid-1980s to over 40,000 today. A genuine, rare conservation success story. In 2024, the rangers counted a single night record of 5,219 penguins crossing, the highest count since the survey began in 1968. Why? A long, brutal program of removing every fox from the island, buying back every house in the original beach subdivision, and rewilding the dunes. Phillip Island also holds Australia's largest fur seal colony at Seal Rocks, about 25,000 seals that you can watch from cliff viewing platforms or boat tours. Add the resident pelicans, koalas in the eucalypts, and migrating short-tailed shearwaters that arrive in the millions every September. And you've got a small island town where the animal residents number well into the hundreds of thousands. The humans built the freeway, the penguins built the economy, and nobody on Phillip Island would have it any other way. Number 3. Macquarie Island, Tasmania. Hold on to your hats. We're heading deep south now, about 1,500 kilometers southeast of Tasmania, halfway to Antarctica, into the freezing Southern Ocean. This is Macquarie Island, a long, narrow, windswept volcanic ridge sticking out of the sub-Antarctic seas. Permanent human population, 0. The only people there at any time are a rotating crew of around 20 to 40 Australian Antarctic Division scientists and support staff living at the ANRE base. What lives there in their place is genuinely difficult to grasp. Approximately 4 million penguins. 4 million. Including the entire global breeding population of royal penguins. Around 850,000 breeding pairs, all on this one island. Add in 150,000 to 170,000 pairs of king penguins, plus gentoo and rockhopper penguins, plus about 80,000 elephant seals, plus tens of thousands of fur seals and petrels. The animal to human ratio here is roughly 100,000 to 1. The single most extreme ratio on this entire list. The conflict was almost catastrophic. Cats, rats, and rabbits introduced by sealers in the 1800s tore the island apart, eating eggs, chicks, and burrow-nesting birds, and turning whole hillsides into dust bowls. By the early 2000s, the seabird populations were collapsing, so Australia launched one of the most ambitious eradication programs in conservation history. A $25 million project that ran from 2010 to 2014, using helicopters, dogs, and hunters to wipe out every single rabbit, rat, and cat on the island. They succeeded, officially pest-free in 2014. The resolution is genuinely staggering. The penguin colonies are exploding, the seabirds are returning, the hillsides are greening up. Macquarie Island is UNESCO World Heritage listed and is now considered one of the most successful conservation comebacks of the 21st century. No tourism, no permanent humans, just the animals reclaiming what was always theirs. Number 2, Christmas Island, now to the place that breaks the internet every November. Christmas Island, an Australian external territory floating in the Indian Ocean, 1,500 kilometers northwest of mainland Australia and just 350 kilometers south of Java. Permanent human population, around 1,800 people, a mix of Australian-born residents, Malaysian Australians, Chinese Australians, and a small indigenous community. The animal population, an estimated 100 million red crabs. That ratio works out to roughly 55,000 crabs per human. Each year, triggered by the first rains of the wet season, usually October or November, the crabs do something almost unbelievable. They migrate, tens of millions of them at once, moving as a single red carpet out of the rainforest, down across roads, over cars, through gardens, and into the sea to breed. The island shuts down. Parks Australia has built dedicated crab bridges and crab tunnels over and under major roads, engineered tubes that let the crabs cross safely while traffic still flows. Locals know to keep their garages closed, houses get sealed. Driving at peak migration is almost impossible. The crunch of crab under tires is something every visitor remembers, and it haunts a lot of drivers. The conflict here is invasive species. In the late 1990s, yellow crazy ants, accidentally introduced from cargo ships, formed super colonies and started killing crabs in their burrows. The population crashed from around 100 million to around 45 million within a decade. Parks Australia has spent millions of dollars since on aerial baiting programs to control the ants. The crab numbers are now recovering, and the most recent estimate has them back to around 100 million. The crabs are not just a tourist attraction, they are the entire ecosystem. They eat seedlings, churn the soil, recycle nutrients. Without the crabs, the Christmas Island rainforest collapses. The 1,800 humans on the island know it. And they live their lives around the migration with quiet, complete respect. Number 1, Inaminka, South Australia. And here we are. Number 1. The town with arguably the most lopsided animal-to-human ratio on mainland Australia. Inaminka, sitting on the Cooper Creek in the far northeast corner of South Australia, near the Queensland border. Permanent human population, somewhere between 12 and 15 people. That's not a typo. 12. The animal population around Inaminka, in any direction you look, is genuinely beyond counting. Tens of thousands of cattle on neighbouring Inaminka Station and the surrounding Channel country properties. Mobs of kangaroos and emus that come down to drink at the creek in their hundreds. Wild camels in the dunes to the west, part of Australia's million-strong feral camel herd. Brolgas, pelicans, black swans, and corellas in their thousands when the Cooper floods. Dingoes that howl all night. This is the area where the explorers Burke and Wills famously starved to death in 1861, partly because they refused help from the local Yandrawanda people, who could have fed them indefinitely on the same country. The dig tree, the famous tree carved with rescue instructions, still stands not far from town. Inaminka today consists of a pub, a trading post, a ranger station, and a small cluster of corrugated iron buildings. That's it. That's the town. Drive into Inaminka on a hot afternoon and you'll see more kites and crows in the sky than you'll see humans on the ground. Sit at the pub at sunset and a brolga might walk past your table. The Cooper runs broad and brown and ancient beside the town. Animal to human ratio, easily 50,000 to 1. Probably much more. Inaminka isn't a town that's been overrun by wildlife. It's a town that politely exists inside the wildlife's territory. And honestly, that's how it should be.